So we have a tradition here of supporting our faculty members who publish. We give them an opportunity to come in and talk to the campus community about their work. So today we're happy to hear from Dr. Paul Schleifer, who has written a novel called The Missing Teacher, a Kemp Maloney story. Got it right this time. So Dr. Schleifer, I'll turn it over to you.
Why don't we start with a brief prayer. Peace of the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time. We thank you for these people. Help us to remember always why we're here, that we're preparing for life in your kingdom. Father, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen. I know I bribed most of you to be here, but it's still nice to see you. So, publishing in the 2020s is different from publishing before. Mike actually published a book with a publisher, right? And mine's kind of self-published because anybody can publish a book now, even me. I'm supposed to talk about my experience of writing a novel and why I wrote it and that sort of thing. And for a long time, I kind of resisted the tendency of English professors to always be would-be writers, but I have always been kind of a would-be writer. I wrote short stories, I wrote poetry when I was younger. I tried to get some things published that didn't get published, but I'm not really good at self-promotion. So once I got a couple of return slips, I just held on to things. I mean, I've published academic stuff, but it's not quite the same. So in this day and age, when you can use Amazon Kindle to publish your own stuff, it was kind of easy, and I thought, well, I should publish this. So why did I write it? It's kind of a mystery story, and there are a number of things that play into what prompted me to write this particular mystery story. So first thing, I teach creative writing, and I thought I'll share some of this with my students in the creative writing class. We submit things, the students submit things anonymously, so they won't know it's for me, and I'll see what kind of response I get. And the response I got was mostly pretty good. Then I revealed my secret identity to my own kid and his fiance, and they did a lot of proofreading for me. And if you ever want to do some writing, you want to get, there they are. Come on in, there's a chair. That's my son Kit and his wife Lissa. They're both graduates from here if you don't recognize them.
He was just talking about you two behind your back. Nice.
No, apparently it was in front of their back. Yeah. So if you ever write fiction, if you ever get it in your head to write a novel, I would encourage you to have readers. Readers who'll be sympathetic, who'll be supportive, and who'll also let you know when you're being really stupid. And I know of no people in the world who are better at letting me know when I'm being really stupid than my own kids. They're just so good at it. Thanks, Kit. Thanks, Lissa. So I started working on this story, and part of my mindset here is I read a lot. I read a lot through my ears because I don't have time enough to read, so everywhere I go, you see me with earbuds, it's because I'm listening to a book. Sometimes a podcast, but usually a book. And I like reading young adult fiction because I find some really creative stuff in the young adult market. But one of the things I've noticed in recent years is that since Harry Potter, most YA fiction is oriented towards women, girls. And it's a chicken and egg problem. It's girls read a lot more than boys do, especially in the middle and high school years. And so if you're trying to publish and want readership, you're probably going to orient your stuff towards girls. But then again, maybe the reason boys don't read so much is that most of the stuff that's being published right now is written for girls. No chicken and egg problem. So I intentionally targeted this towards middle and high school age boys. Then again, I'm not really good at marketing. I took 2 marketing classes when I was in graduate school, and neither one of them took. Maybe I should have paid attention more. Valuable lesson for all of you students. Anyway, so I haven't really done a lot of marketing. It's not really out there, but this is a start. We'll put this on the website. I have a friend in Colorado who's going to get a copy of the book, who's currently teaching middle school English. So word of mouth, move it slowly. I'm not in a hurry. I'm only 66. I got lots of years in front of me. I thought once I gave you a little background of where this story came from, that I maybe would read a little bit of the first chapter to you, or maybe the first chapter. The chapters aren't long. So if you don't mind, I'll read. What? Oh, thanks, Louis. Now I got my own. I should tell you, the narrator is Kemp Maloney, and he's only 15, and I probably don't sound like a 15-year-old anymore. So maybe I should have one of you come read it. Yeah. Chapter 1. I caught it out of the corner of my eye, almost too late. A slide tackle studs up. And I knew its purpose because I'd seen it before, but this one was a little faster than I was used to, and he got me on my left boot. I went down hard, but I knew right away that there was no damage. Still, I rolled and stayed down, half expecting to hear a whistle, even though it was practice and not a game. No whistle. But everyone stopped, and a few ran over to me. I didn't need to see them to know they thought it was bad. You can tell when you listen to the sounds of the game. Kip, you all right? The new coach hadn't gotten it yet. My name is Kemp, but somehow people always start out calling me Kip or Kit or even Ken. It's hard getting your mind wrapped around a name you've never heard before. My dad's a college English professor, teaches early English literature, and he named me for some guy he says is famous for writing about Chaucer, but nobody's ever heard of the guy. I slowly got to my feet, hopped around a little as if I was in real pain. Don't get me wrong, anytime some nut takes out your feet, it's going to hurt, but there's pain and then there's pain. This was the not so bad kind. I'm okay, Coach, thanks. No problem, ready? Yeah. Coach Charles, that's his last name. Old-fashioned coaches go by their last name, you know. Turned away and lit into Devin. You do that in a game with our refs, you might be seeing red, you understand? Yes, Coach. Devin looked humbled. But I've seen this kind before. He wanted to show me a thing or two. Shake hands, boys. You're going to be on the same team, for God's sake. As we shook, Devin said under his breath, I doubt it, JV. We'll see, I answered. It wasn't witty, but my foot still hurt. You can't expect me to be witty when I'm still limping, can you? Scrimmages are always kind of hard, especially when you're the new kid in town like me. In a game, your goal is to win, and you do that through teamwork as well as individual play. But in a tryout scrimmage, your goal is to impress the coach. Now, you don't want to impress the coach with how incredibly selfish you are, but if you always just move the ball on to another player, the coach never gets to see what you are capable of. It's like you're screaming at the coach, look at me, what a team player I am. Knowing that coaches always have that stupid, there is no I in team cliche in their heads. So I spent the next 15 minutes trying to walk that line until I got the ball out wide on a 1v1 with Devin again. I saw his eyes light up. But this was my time. I used that trick Ronaldinho used in a YouTube bit, starting with a slight push with the outside of my right foot and then cutting my foot around the ball and quickly going left. I knew Devin was more interested in taking me than in taking the ball, but I was ready for that too. As I pushed the ball left, I immediately hopped over his two-footed slide. I was wide open, headed for goal. As I drove in on the keeper, I spotted Isaiah Johnson, the team's only African-American player, a senior who, as I had been told, hadn't played a minute in 2 years on varsity, though he was very fast. So instead of taking the keeper myself, I slotted a ball across the area and let him take it in. He celebrated with a Klinsmann dive, so I joined him. Walking back up the field, Johnson slapped me a low five and said, "Thanks, man, great move and great pass." "No problem," I answered. "Good finish." After practice, as I was unlocking my bike to ride home, Devin came walking up with two of his buddies behind him. One was Jordan Page, last year's team captain, and from what I'd heard, one of the popular guys. Next to him was Ben Austin, one of Jordan's group. "You embarrassed me today, JV, Devin said. "Didn't mean to," I answered. "Well, I think you did. We're supposed to try to score goals, aren't we? But you didn't even score the goal. You gave it to Johnson." He was open. "Sure, but you still embarrassed me on purpose. You can't get away with crap like that." "Keep your feet next time." "How about if I arrange that there isn't a next time?" I could tell where this was going, so I did a quick mental check. I was wearing jogging shoes, which would limit my side-to-side movement. I had on a Salt Valley sleeveless flannel shirt, which left my arms free. And I was wearing some khaki shorts by Yoko D, very short for good leg movement. I felt ready for whatever Devin might bring, but I also knew I didn't want to start anything with Ben and Jordan there. Still, I was ready. I said, "Look, Devin, it was just a scrimmage, and like Coach said, we're really on the same team, you know, and I really don't want any trouble." "Hey, JV, it's no trouble for me to whip your butt." "Is that why you brought backup? Because I'm no trouble?" Jordan spoke up. "We're just observers, no interference from us, dude." "I told you I don't want any trouble, but before you start anything, Devin, just think about this." I stopped for a moment to check his eyes. He was listening, but the eyes were dull, like he wasn't really understanding what I was saying. "You're a senior and I'm a freshman. You outweigh me by at least 25 pounds. If you take me, people will think you're a bully. But if you start something and I take you, you'll be the laughingstock. You have nothing to gain, except the satisfaction of beating the crap out of you." And with that, he threw a roundhouse right at my head. After my mom died when I was 5, my dad got this notion that I wouldn't grieve as much or miss her as much if he kept me busy. So in addition to signing me up for soccer, he also signed me up for martial arts. For a while, I got to study under a sensei who practiced and taught, if that's the word, Jeet Kune Do, the fighting approach developed by Bruce Lee. One of the principles of JKT is efficiency of motion, and that means using the stop hit, stopping an attack not by blocking and counterpunching, but by attacking. So I stepped inside the roundhouse, stepped on Devin's foot, and hit him in the mouth with my forearm. No sense in risking a broken finger. Devin dropped in an awkward way because of his forward momentum and my foot on his foot, but he did drop, moaning. I looked over at Jordan and Ben. "No interference, right, dudes?" I said. I turned away, walked back to my bike, hopped on, and left. So that's how I started it. I won't tell you any more because that'd spoil it. I don't want to have any spoilers. Jonathan, Dr. Cersei interviewed me a while back about this, and he asked me if this was about me and my son. And it's kind of not. I'm not really in the book at all. But as I thought about it, because of the question he asked me, it's kind of like my dad. There's a lot of my dad in the father. And my dad died when he was 63, way back in 1987. So, and thinking about that, you know, it's fun to remember people who've been part of your life. Okay. That was 15 minutes. Can I go to questions now?
This is your show.
Okay. All right, so what do you want to hear about? Yeah.
How long did it take you to write?
Ask the question.
Oh, how long did it take me to write? Just didn't get you. Year and a half, but in small spurts. because I do have a full-time job. And this is kind of typical for people who start out, even younger people. I had a friend when I was in graduate school, Tom Dietz, who wrote a bunch of novels. But his first one took him 5 years. And then once he got that published, it just became a lot easier. So yeah.
Are you going to make this a series?
I have started a second one.
Okay.
But it's kind of hard to keep going because I have this full-time job. But I have, yeah. Yeah.
Where'd you get the cover of the book?
The cover of where did I get the cover of the book? And the previous question was, am I going to make this a series? Actually, my goal is for Disney to pick it up as a TV show. Then I become a multi-millionaire. And
Donate to Swoop.
donate to Swoop. Yeah. Where did I get the cover? So there are websites where you can actually go. They actually have, you can use these pictures for your cover thing. My next one, if I get finished with it ever and publish it, I'm going to try to get an artist to do a cover for me. He ran out of time the last time. You want me to point him out? You want to turn the camera back? Yes?
When you got, how did you get the idea for the story? Did it start with the characters or the mystery itself?
Oh, how did I get the idea for it? Well, it's a little bit hard to say how I got the idea for the story without risking revealing more than I really like to risk. So the story's called The Missing Teacher. So obviously there's a teacher who's missing. So it hasn't been too long, and maybe it's still a thing, where they warn you about going on the internet and going on dating sites because you never know who you're going to meet. And that was kind of the background, is a teacher who's gone on a dating site and now she's gone missing. And I mean, that was kind of the germ of the story itself. I don't want to say it's based on a real life incident because it's not. It's clearly not. It's just based on a real life. This is something that people are afraid of. People are afraid of all kinds of things that never really happen. We recently had Halloween. And sure enough, on WYFF, the local NBC affiliate, on their evening news, Monday evening, the 5 o'clock news, they were talking about how you need to be careful, you need to check all the candy that your kids get. And the number of incidents of poisoned candy that are actually like this really happened is one. And it was a father poisoning his own son. So, and this is the same sort of thing. I don't know if there have been a lot of incidents of people going on dating sites and then disappearing forever, but that was kind of. But again, I should warn you, that may not be what happened. Yes. Yes.
How hard was the self-publishing process?
It was a lot easier than I thought it would be through Kindle digital publishing. I really thought, the question was how hard was the self-publishing? It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Kindle has made it super easy to do the self-publishing. When I was younger, if you couldn't find a publisher for your book, you did what they call vanity publishing, which is somebody would publish for you, but they would charge you like $5,000 or $10,000. Now it didn't cost anything. And the books are, what is it, Louis?
I'm going to ask the next question, so I just raised my hand.
So people buy the book, and I mean, these cost less than what you have to pay for them, but it's not much less. I mean, they're really cheap. I have 10, I think, paper-bound copies and a couple hard copies, which I'd be happy to let you buy for 8 paper-bound copies. The paper bounds are $5, the hard copies are $13. But you can get them off Kindle for $4.99 and $12.99. But if you want me to sign it for you, I don't know why you would, but you could say, I knew him when. So I don't have any change. Yeah. Lewis.
Oh, so you said there's a lot of your father in this book. The young man, his name is Kemp, and when I read the book, I got the Kindle edition, so I don't have a hard copy for you to sign. You can sign my iPad.
I will. Magic marker.
Yeah, Mark's thought, yeah. So anyway, Sharpie. Does Kemp come from anybody with whose name starts with a K?
Not really.
Okay.
The name, there actually is a Chaucer scholar named Kemp Malone. And I don't really know what it means. I think somewhere along the line, some professor of mine said that it means champion. And so I just thought, well, that's the kind of name some nerdy English professor would use.
To name his kid
son.
With a
Yeah.
K?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I want to urge everybody to read the first chapter for themselves, because if they do, they will realize that Dr. Schleifer censored himself. There are words in here that Dr. Schleifer chose not to read out loud. And so,
Just two.
and so my question is, what was your experience as a Christian writing a book where Kemp Maloney, not a Christian, or it's not like a huge part of his character, but it is a moral book. I would say he is a force for right and good. So, yeah, in your head, are you a Christian who writes fiction? Is it a Christian book? How do you think about how your faith manifested itself in this book?
Okay, well, do I have to go through that whole question?
I think he was pretty loud.
Okay, because that would take me like 5 minutes just to...
That would be a waste of my chip space here.
So let me address the bad words thing first. And a number of the students here today are in my speech class this semester. And so they've heard me talk about bad words. And I don't... at one level, I think words are bad the way you use them. They're not bad in and of themselves. On the other hand, what I have found with fiction that I like is that bad people use bad words. So both of the instances in this chapter, it's Devin who uses the bad words. And it's a little bit of a way of marking. I'm a Christian who chose to write a novel. In this book, and it's kind of weird because it's been, I published this in January. The last time I read it, the whole thing was right before I published it, probably in December. And then I've been working on the second one, not for a few months because of the semester. So I know that they go to church. But I haven't I wouldn't call it a Christian book like the kinds of books that you find at Crossway bookstore, right? Where that's the most important thing about the story. That's not to say that Kemp is not a Christian. In my mind, he is. In my mind, his father is, despite the fact that he's an English professor, because we know about English professors and how they're all just like radical leftists.
Same thing with media professors.
Same thing with, yeah. And history professors, radical leftists. But I wanted to tell a story that anybody could read and not. I mean, this is an inside thing here, sorry. This is kind of what I'm talking about with the Christianity and social media thing that I proposed to members of the division, that there was a time when it became really popular to do Christian-y stuff that was just like the secular stuff, right? So you have the Christian Bob Dylan and the Christian U2 and, you know, that sort of thing. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to market myself as a Christian mystery story. But that doesn't mean that my faith isn't embedded in the story. Yes?
Did Kemp or any of the characters become real enough to you that you reached a point where you had planned for this to happen, but by the time you got there, you're like, no, I know him and he wouldn't do that?
So the question is, did I get to a point that the characters were real, that they took on a life of their own and did things that I didn't originally plan for them to do? So I'm not an outlining kind of writer when it comes to fiction, which is probably one of the reasons it took me a year and a half. You know, if I'd outlined the whole story. But yeah, things changed. People did things that I didn't expect them to do in a sense. The ending didn't come to me until very, very late in the writing. And there are some little plot holes, I have to admit, because that's how I write fiction. Other stuff I outline, but the story I didn't. So, but I don't think they took on a life of their own to where I felt. In fact, one of my biggest concerns about the novel is that all the characters sound like me. Which I don't. I mean, I worked at doing certain things to make sure that didn't happen. But it, you know, it's one of the things I'm aware of, that it's hard to create different voices for characters. Does that help? I mean, you've done this. Did the characters take on a life of their own for you? And I can't remember the name of Mike's novel. I read it. It's just been a while. The Emperor.
All Hail the Emperor.
All Hail the Emperor. There we go.
Yeah, they did. A couple of characters more so than the other, where I had planned for one to do something, and I got to that point and got, it's like I know this guy. And this guy, you know, you have friends who, you know, you put them in a situation, and you go, yeah, they wouldn't do that. It was kind of like that for me.
Okay. There are some things that, particularly with Kemp, the main character, that there's one particular thing that's a really minor thing that he does that is exclusively based on my perception of the character, that I wouldn't have made him do, except it just came to me, oh yeah, he would do this, and this is what the result would be. So you can ask me about it once you've read it. Yeah.
So now that you've gone through the whole process of like writing the book and publishing it, looking back, is there anything that you wish you knew before you did all this?
So the question is, now that I've gone through the whole process of writing and publishing, is there anything that I wish I had known before I got into it? I wish I'd known in advance that I would have to do a book talk.
You didn't have to say yes.
I didn't have to say, well, I didn't want to be like a spoil sport. And Joni asked me like last spring, and it's been a difficult year. What? I am a spoil sport? Thanks, Louis. Thanks. I wish I'd known how easy it was to self-publish. I mean, it really was, in terms of what I wish I had known, and what I wish I knew now was how to successfully market a book. So I understand that you need your own website nowadays to market. I don't have a website. I have done some blogging on the CIFC website the Carolina Institute for Faith and Culture, which you can go to. It's at Freedoms Hill Primer. freedomshillprimer.com. So maybe this will lead to me doing like a bookstore thing, and then the bookstore will buy some copies of it. Do you have a local bookstore at home?
I do.
So contact the owner, say you need to get this book in stock.
Oh, gotcha.
Everybody do that. I'm sorry?
SWU students get a discount.
SWU students get a discount?
If you buy one here, he's selling them super cheap. I paid more.
It's 99 cents on digital. So if you read off your Kindle or your tablet or your iPad or whatever, I mean, how much discounting can I do? I think for every book I sell, whether it's digital or hard copy, I think I get 2.5 cents. I didn't go into it for the money.
And you do have to declare that on your income for taxes, by the way.
Yeah. I think I'm up to like 75 cents.
Don't worry, Disney, the whole Disney thing. Yeah.
I will say this about, I joke about selling it to Disney. I cannot remember a movie, particularly movies made for young people that did sports, that I thought, oh yeah, they did that really well. I can't remember a single one. And I think soccer is the worst. So I don't know how they would do, I don't know how Disney would make me pleased with how they portrayed soccer. Basketball and baseball are pretty awful. Well, baseball is easier to do, I think, than soccer, basketball, or even football. But I knew a woman when I was in college. She was a year behind me at Davidson. Her name was Patsy Daniels. Today she's known as Patricia Cornwell. I don't know if you've heard of her. She has a whole series of books about a medical examiner in Richmond, Virginia, Kay Scarpetta. And Patricia does not, you will not find a movie version of Kay Scarpetta, because she refuses to sell her books to Hollywood, because Hollywood will take them and do what they want with them. So she's just content to sell her books and be a millionaire. That's my goal. Any other questions? I don't have anything else to say. Thank you for coming. And if you're one of my students, there's a thing here to put your name on and your class so that I'll know that you were here. All right.